Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw Reacts. The thumbnail and the title of this video pretty much give away what I'm talking about in this video. In the most recent episode of the Book of Boba Fett, we had a pretty crazy reveal. Well, we had a lot of reveals. We had one in particular that really stood out in a big way, in a positive way, and now the question is, can we see a young Luke post the original trilogy series on Disney+? I wanted to pull up a side-by-side comparison of Luke from the Mandalorian Season 2 finale, and of course, Episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. The Mandalorian Season 2 finale. A lot of us were shocked that Luke was actually the Jedi coming to get Grogu because there was a lot of theories in terms of who it could be. A lot of us were not expecting Luke. He was a possibility, but I don't think a lot of people were thinking they were actually going to do it. Now, the look here, it's not terrible, but at times it looks better and other times not so much. I think this is a pretty solid shot in terms of what we got of Luke, which was very, very little in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale, actually seeing his face. We got to see a good portion of him fighting, of course, and using the saber, and it was awesome. But in terms of his actual face, not a lot. Comparing that to this is a major, major difference. It is so unreal that we do a de-aging technology, which was used here for the Mandalorian Season 2 finale, and then the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 6, deepfake. And we know this past summer, which was summer 2021, they hired a YouTuber, and there was a couple different people that did deepfakes to fix the face, essentially, of Luke in the Mandalorian Season 2 finale. And they actually hired a guy. I forget his name, but a lot of people have been talking about that once he got hired. And now with this, we know why he was hired, because it was pretty much flawless. There were some things in terms of his mouth movement and matching the words, but in terms of actually seeing young Luke and it looking like young Luke, like Mark Hamill back around the time of Return of the Jedi, it's insane. Now the question is this: is a Luke Disney Plus series, whether it's limited or not, could this actually be pulled off now because of the deepfake technology? And I think it's possible, but there's a few things we have to look at here in terms of a potential Luke Disney Plus series. Let's start off with the pros, obviously. I have here, number one, seeing Luke actually train Padawans, because in the sequel trilogy, we had heard about it. We saw the burning of the temple in terms of what Kylo Ren did, but we actually didn't see Luke training. Now, of course, we get a fair amount of this. I was actually surprised how much we actually got of training Grogu in Episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett, but actually seeing Luke training other Padawans past the point of, you know, wherever the timeline is in terms of training Grogu, whether Grogu decides to stay with Luke or not, because that decision, of course, looked up in the air at this point. But seeing him actually build the new Jedi temple, essentially trying to bring forth the Jedi again, and maybe there's some changes along the way. I mean, because there's a lot of stuff we don't know about all that time period in terms of him training. Number two, seeing Han and Leia, because we know through The Rise of Skywalker, of course, I know a lot of people don't only talk about the sequel trilogy, but we know that Leia at one point was training. So there is a possibility. And of course, we know Kylo Ren, eventually goes to train with Luke. So there's a possibility of a deep fake or seeing Han and Leia, in a sense, somewhere in this series. Obviously, Mark Hamill is still alive, so they're able to pull out the deep fake a little bit better. And of course, we did have a, you know, de-aged Leia, of course, at the end of Rogue One, but with Carrie Fisher actually passing away, I'm not really sure if they're, you know, ready to do that. And of course, Harrison Ford, I'm not sure what his whole thing about doing another Star Wars project or whatever, but I mean, it's going to get to the point now where deepfakes are going to become kind of the norm, I think, in terms of Hollywood moving forward. Like, I'm trying to think of before Luke in Book of Boba Fett, I'm trying to think if there was ever a deep fake like this in terms of a television production. I'm not really sure, but I think this is starting something. I already covered this with a side-by-side comparison, but the deepfake technology is so good at this point, and it's going to continue to get better, that it already works great right now. Obviously, there were certain camera angles and stuff, and this will be something to get into the cons as well, in terms of where a lot of the times you don't see his mouth moving that much in terms of, you know, showing him actually speaking, but you hear it. So that might be a con, which we'll get to in a second, but they overall made it work. And this is right now. If they were to develop a Luke show for Disney Plus, it's only going to get better up to that point when they actually start making it. Number one, a lot of post-production. Now, I'm not sure of how fast it was to turn around shooting the body double of Luke throughout this episode of the Book of Boba Fett, and how long it took in post-production from turning the face of the body double, who actually we've seen before in terms of the episode before, he was one of the X-Wing pilots, taking it from his face to young Luke's face in terms of the deep fake, how long that actually takes. Because if you were to do a limited series, let's say 6 episodes of a Luke Disney Plus series, how long would that actually take in post-production to complete and pull that off? Now, with this second con, potentially a lot of other characters taking screen time, is referencing the fact that they had to shoot around young Luke throughout Book of Boba Fett, because even though the deepfake technology really worked, there's a lot of times they cut away from him speaking. There's certain points they had the camera on him speaking, but the mouth movement wasn't perfect. But I think that will get better over time, obviously. But the fact is they had to do a lot of workaround in terms of only showing Luke at particular parts, in terms of you actually seeing his face on screen. We know he's there with Grogu and everything, but still it's like there's certain moments where they cut away because it's just easier on them in terms of, you know, work in post-production. So I would think that if they were to do a Luke Disney Plus series, they would have to do a lot of workaround in terms of cutting away at certain points, but also probably giving other characters a lot of focus at times so that we're not having to do a lot of extra work in post-production of Luke. Like, we don't have to always focus on Luke the whole entire time of the series. Obviously, that's not the case at all. I'm not saying that Luke has to be in every single frame, every single scene, but they might have to accommodate the fact that it's a lot of work in post-production to have a lot of other character screen time, and it kind of takes away from the Luke side of the story. That's just my opinion, though. I could sit here and continue to think of more pros and cons. At the end of the day, I think this show could work. It'd just be probably a lot of post-production. But what do you guys think? Do you think they could pull off a young Luke Skywalker Disney Plus series, probably 6 episodes roughly? Do you think they could pull it off? Would you want to see it? Whatever thoughts you have in terms of pros or cons that could work or work for or against the show I came to speak today. Whatever thoughts you have, guys, let me know in the comments below. I'm curious to know your thoughts about all this. I will talk to you guys soon. Peace out.